Ready. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Basketball to Business podcast. And I am here with Pete Monda. How are you doing? The founder of NoLimitsBasketball. What's going on, man?
Hey, man. Good to have you. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's late your way. Tell everyone what time it is.
It is. It's 11 p.m.
Cool. So, question, could you fill everyone in regards to your background, what you did before you started opening your basketball training and how you're doing now?
Yeah, sure. I finished high school and I didn't really know what I wanted to do as a career. I'd coached sort of some teams here and there and loved coaching basketball. And while working in an office job, started doing a little bit of coaching on the side. I did a certification course with Gannon Baker, a trainer, and realized I might be able to make some money out of it, and started small and just gradually grew the business over the years.
How long ago was that office job?
So that was 2011. I started No Limits. So that's 9 years ago now. I was still working part-time in another job for, I believe, 2 to 3 years after that. And then it became full-time from around 2013, 2014.
And what did you see Gannon Baker's course online and decided to just catch a flight, go up there, check it out?
No, he came to Australia. So I'm in Melbourne and he came to another city, Sydney. And it was a couple of days certification course with him. And that's kind of what kickstarted things. I'd seen him online, and at the time, this is like 9 years ago, he was kind of the main guy, one of the first guys that made skill training a profession. So he was kind of the go-to guy at that time. And did certification course with him a couple of days and started training kids after that.
What was, when you began, did you train elite athletes, some of the I guess the novice athletes? I know right now you're niched in kind of the middle, but how did you begin?
Yeah, it was definitely probably a step below the kids that we have now. It was the novice kind of players. The first kind of kids that I got were so a couple of kids that I knew that played at my local club where I coached at, trained them for a while. They told their friends. The club that I was at was happy to promote my stuff to the players within our club, which sort of got me some players there. And I mean, for the first year or so, it was like less than 20 kids. It was a very small time thing. And then just from word of mouth and from doing a good job with the kids that I had, it just gradually grew and started to snowball and pick up. But yeah, initially it was definitely novice players, and that sort of gradually increased a little bit as time's gone on.
What would you say gave you the big jump? I know word of mouth was helpful. You have some experience with Google ads, Facebook ads. What percentage would you say is responsible for the growth, the major growth?
The biggest growth I had was, and it was a huge jump. It was completely from Facebook ads. So this was about, I'd say it was about 2015. So we've been going for a couple of years. I had around 40 players, 50 players a week. And that was pretty consistent for the last year or so before that. I got into Facebook ads, and at this time, like 5 years ago, you pay about 10% what you pay now per click for Facebook ads. So for a click to website, it was about 10 cents. Now I get more like $1.10 for that.
Right.
So I don't know what was going to happen. But we went from, in the space of a couple of months, we went from 40 players to 140 players.
What was the ad? What was the ad? What was the campaign, the funnel breakdown, if you mind telling?
There was just a competition. There was no one in our area doing really skills training at any kind of scale. There'd be like local, pro player imports that would do a couple of kids sessions here and there, but no one really doing it at scale for quality training. There was people doing it at scale for sort of younger kids and more fun and games, kind of after school care, basically. But there was no one really doing it at scale for kids that were serious about getting better. And that's where we ended up in that kind of niche in the middle. So, I mean, the ads weren't great. Like, they were decent. I just did a bit of research about how to, write a good Facebook ad, and they were nothing amazing, but it was really just, we filled a massive hole that there was nothing else in. And the numbers just exploded from there. And after that, they stayed pretty consistent at that number for a while, mainly just because I couldn't increase capacity. I didn't have other coaches working for me at that time that were able to cover it. So we got basically a capacity just entirely from those Facebook ads.
That was my next question. You went from 40 to 140. How did you mind that without Catherine or any admin assistant? How are you handling that as a trainer and the admin and everything else?
Yeah, well, I mean, so Catherine, who now does our booking and our admin, I only hired her November last year, and that was about 5 years too late. That should have been a long time ago. Now that I've done it, but yeah, it was long hours, like the stereotypical kind of grinding. Like I was working long weeks because it was coaching, it was taking bookings, it was responding to emails, responding to calls, marketing to get new kids, to keep that turnover of kids going. Like it was long hours and long weeks.
When did you start before I asked about the academy, how many kids were you having in each session? And how many sessions were you offering per week after the jump?
Great question. We initially, particularly because I wanted to keep it more budget to encourage more and more people to sign up, we had bigger groups. So typically we did groups of 10. That was kind of a standard session, was a group of 10. We'd often, if we hired out a full court, and at that time I had one coach working for me, it'd be a group of 20. We'd have 10 at each basket with a coach. We were charging, I believe, about $20 a session for those, for a 1 hour session. Now we've moved more to small groups. So we started with the big groups. For a little while, we kind of offered both. We offered small groups of 4, and also the groups of 10. And then I believe it was about 2 years ago now, we switched to all the small groups just because we felt like we could provide a better, it was a better product, and people got more out of it with the small groups.
Okay. And I'm assuming, and of course you don't have to disclose too much, I'm assuming you right at $50 per session there for those kids to come for those small groups, just to make sure you're at least at the same amount you were with the 10 kids charging $20, right?
Yeah, it's 45. It depends on how many they do per week. If they're doing one per, it's 45. But we do that on a weekly membership to make sure that they're, and that's definitely a really important thing that we did, is switch to a weekly membership kind of model. It used to be you'd pay for a number of sessions and then you could kind of turn up when you wanted. We then did it as essentially the same thing as a membership, where we kind of said you're paying for 10 sessions, they expire in 10 weeks, but you got to use them all up within that time. And then what a lot of people would do would go for the 10 weeks and then they sort of stop there just because they felt like that was the finish line. Whereas we have a membership that has a minimum length of 8 weeks, but it automatically just keeps going until they actually want to cancel and stop their membership. And that makes a big difference for continuity. And the reason we make that possible is because we've got a lot of classes. People are able to sort of move around within a week to do a different class if they've got something on and they can't make it, which they like. They've got a bit of flexibility there, but they're still paying the same thing each week, and it's locked in that's what they're paying, which means we know how much money is coming in.
What are your hours? Are you from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m., 3 to 8?
Yeah, so weekdays, Monday to Friday, we're 4:15 to 9:15. And then Sundays pretty much all day from sort of 10 until 8. A few gaps in there, but pretty much all weekend.
Were you timid at all to switch over to the weekly membership? I mean, obviously you get more weeks of payment, so there's more income, more revenue there. But were you timid at all to switch to that membership style?
I mean, I guess there is the worry that people then feel like they're locked in, and then people would, cancel because they don't, because they think, well, yeah, I have to stay in it now every single week, and I might not be able to make it one week. But we didn't have anyone drop off when we made the switch. I don't think there was any cancellations. It was just that was the new way that we did it, and people were all good with that.
That's interesting. For you, what is your gym setup? I know you were looking at a warehouse. I don't know if you still are. But what is your current gym setup? Are you renting? Are you owning?
Yep. Yeah. So we leased the building that we've got. So we took that out February 2019, February last year. It took about 6 months to get the build done. We had to wait for building and planning permits and all that kind of stuff, which sucked. So we opened in October last year. And that building, we leased the building, but we paid for the full fit out. So it's essentially, it feels like our building. even though we don't own the physical building itself, it's our academy. It's not like we're renting court space and there's other people using the court. It's purely ours.
Which is what, the trainers, I say we, speaking generally, we used to think we wanted to own a building. And then what you really want is just the gym where you have access to unlimited times and freedom to train in. For you, what are many questions here, honestly. When you opened the academy, correct? Is the academy something new as of October? Talk to me about that opening of the academy and the launch.
Yeah, well, up until that point, we'd just be hiring local courts. So the stadiums in our area, we'd be paying for hours over here, hours at that court. So it was lots of different venues. And we'd be moving around. We'd have to take all our equipment with us, which was pretty inconvenient. And you're essentially just being able to use whatever space they've got available. So you have to wait for them to have time available. And we were just at capacity for a good year before we opened the academy. So we had about 150 players, still that kind of amount, because there's a real shortage of court space in our city. And so it was just, we couldn't get any more courts basically. And it became definitely obvious that the best thing would be to open our own place, and the lease would make it worth it. Started looking for places and opened in October. It was essentially the same classes that we were running at all those venues, but now we could all run them at our facility, which let us have, we've got the Dr. Dish machines there now, a whole bunch of other equipment, which actually makes the sessions better. We've got like a video replay system, which the kids can, do a rep and they get to watch it on delay, which really, really helps. Things like that. Just being our brand and have, our logo on the wall and that stuff, and it feels like home is such a better experience for us as coaches, for the players, for the parents, for everyone. And it really sets you apart. So when we opened, we went from having, that 150 kind of capacity to being up to now about 280 capacity of sessions per week. So that was, if kids were all doing one session a week, it'll be 280 players. We got some kids doing more than one a week, so it's a little bit less than that. But yeah, it essentially doubled our potential capacity per week. And that's almost filled out now entirely. So we have about 200 members now, and quite a number of them do more than one session a week. So we're pretty close to capacity again with the new academy.
That's a great thing. It'll always be at operating capacity. Every session is filled up. So there's no, man, congrats to you on that. How do you mix with the academy? Do you have team play, team practices, and coaches who are the head coaches of certain teams, as well as training? How do you mix those two if you do have teams with the academy?
Yeah, no, we don't at the moment. So we're entirely skills training based. A lot of the kids that we train, or almost all the kids that we train, also play in teams, in clubs already. But we find that, and you might find the same thing, a lot of team coaches literally only do team stuff. And if they do any skill work, it's very, very, it's the opposite of detailed. It's very just generic, go and do this move, do a spin move. They don't ever go into any kind of details about how to actually do things or teach players new things. It's more just getting reps of what they can already do. So we're purely skills based, and that's really giving the players what they don't get with their teams and what they don't get with their coaches, which is why they want to train with us. The main reason I haven't ventured into doing it as a club as well, which would be an option, we could start offering teams as well, is just that we also like to advertise through clubs, and then that kind of creates a bit of conflict of interest there. So we want to just stay impartial and purely just be the skills training guys.
I've heard that pretty often, which is the reason why a lot of people say they will not start a club, start a team. The counter to that, just for the thought experiment, like you said, it would be an option. You may lose some advertisement through those clubs. At the same time, those athletes that you train now, they wouldn't leave, or I say leave loosely, but they wouldn't go somewhere else to go to their practices, because their practices at times would take precedence over the training, at least in my experience in the States. So do you see many athletes having their time being limited because of their club experience, or are they able to do both pretty well and balance it?
You mean, can they do their club and our skills training stuff?
Right, or high school, or any kind of sports teams that they're doing, and get the training in? How do you adjust whenever it's time for the club season or the high school season? What are your adjustments that you make?
They definitely can for us. We I know for like a high school team, they usually practice every day or, like 4 or 5 times a week. For us, basketball is more year round. There's a small break, but it's more year round. But the most number of practices a team would have would be 2 a week. So
Got
there's
it.
always a team. Like, a lot of those kids will play in 2 teams. So they might have 2 practices for one team, 1 practice for another team. And then so they'll have the time to get that skills training in on top.
Got it. Question for you. You posted in the group about a YouTube channel that's been helpful to you, Loud Rumor. Tell me
Yep.
about Loud Rumor. What have you learned from that channel that's been really helpful for you?
Man, that's so much. If I could only recommend, and it's weird because they're not a basketball training, they're specifically they're actually a fitness industry, so they're mainly catering to gyms. But probably 90% of the information that they put out applies to us as basketball trainers. It's a very, very similar business. And they're unbelievable in terms of marketing, sales. So just thinking about Facebook ads, Google ads, thinking about the sort of the sales experience when someone turns up, how you follow up on leads, those sort of things. If I could only narrow it down to probably one tip that I got from that I think would maybe be the best one is in terms of follow up, is if you've got a lead, to follow it up until they tell you no. Because I used to follow up once, maybe twice, and if I hadn't got a reply, then we'd stop following up because I'd assume they weren't interested. And for a lot of people, they're just busy. They open your email when they're doing something else and they don't end up replying, or they have full intention of doing it, but they just, for whatever reason, they're not in the mood to sign up right when you contact them. So following up until someone tells you we're not interested, please stop following up. That's something that would probably be the biggest tip I've got from. But yeah, if you're a basketball trainer, it's a really, really great YouTube channel, and they got a blog as well. Lots of good stuff on there.
And are you the one who's mainly prospecting? Of course, you have advertising with these teams, Facebook, Google. Are you the one that's calling on each parent, each athlete, and trying to convert them to be customers of No Limits?
Not me personally. So Catherine now does that, following up with people who've done their trial. But we do, like, we'll have a chat to the player and at their trial session. So that's our main, that's our main way of converting people, is they do a free trial session with us. So once they sign up on our website, join our mailing list, we say, hey, you can do a free trial, which is they just join in one of the group sessions we've got. The first one's no commitment, completely free. And they usually really enjoy that session and they want to sign up, and we go from there.
Okay, so I'm going to ask about Catherine afterwards, because Catherine sounds like she's an all-star.
Yes.
But for the free trials, have you experimented with paying for those, like a low barrier offer? I'm sure the free trials are easier to get people in the door, and then you can have a chance to converse with them and get them signed up. But what has been your thought process with the free trials?
Yeah, I've definitely heard the argument that some people make, that if you charge a small fee, maybe it's a half price session, maybe it's a $10 session, people value it more and therefore kind of feel like they're already sort of in, and you get high quality leads. I haven't tried that, to be honest, because we've never had a problem with our conversion rate on the free trials. It's always been really, really good, well above, between 80 and 90, close to 90%. People that do a free trial want to then sign up. So we used to be sort of have silly conditions, like it was, I can't remember, I think this is way back. I had a stupid condition. I think it was if they signed up, then it was free, or if they didn't sign up, then they had to pay for it. Something terrible. I can't remember what it was. I don't know.
Basically well, no, that's hard, because if you pay like $5, and that $5 can go towards the subscription, right? But how are you explaining that?
The other way around, actually. Yeah. If they didn't like it, they didn't have to pay. But if they did like it and now they were signing up, then I charged them for it, which is the opposite, because they're the people you want now. It was a terrible idea. But yeah, now it's just a free trial. They sign up, they do a free session. If they like it, it's still free.
Understood. It sounds like it's working for you. It's worked for you either way, but you're still here. For Catherine, where did you find her? And I saw the job description on your Facebook profile. It was very detailed, very thorough. I don't think I saw sales and prospecting in that job description, but it sounds like she knows the game enough to be able to convert somebody for you without you worrying.
Yeah, we purely went on Facebook for that. So we posted on our Facebook. We sent an email out to our email list. And I mean, when I started thinking I need to hire someone, because it wasn't really something I'd done before, I had no idea how the process would work and if it was going to be really difficult to find people. But just from our Facebook post and our mailing list, we had more than 100 people apply, and lots of them really, really qualified. And it was, it was really awesome. They were very, very keen to fill the position. And yeah, Catherine was the best of the really good bunch. And she's been absolutely awesome ever since. So she handles essentially all customer service bookings, following up the leads, as you mentioned. And they're very similar in a sense. I think customer service, sales, obviously it's a bit more persuasive. Customer service is more dealing with angry people. But in a sense, they're both dealing with people, and she's very good at that. And she's really picked up on that well.
What does, and of course, obviously you're at liberty to not answer some of these questions, but for her, is she part-time? Did you decide to go with a W-2, 1099? What are some of the details around that?
I'm not sure what those things mean. Might be different.
Sorry. It could be. I forgot about that. So W-2 employee, you're paying some of the taxes here, FICA and FUTA, but 1099, basically, they pay their own taxes. So the worker or the teammate would pay their own taxes at the end of the year. But how does that work in Australia?
That sounds for us like a contractor. Yeah. So
exactly.
For us, coaches are contractors. Good thing for them is in Australia, for some reason, both basketball coaching and refereeing, it's considered a hobby unless it's your main job. And you actually don't pay tax on it unless it's your main source of income. So most of our coaches, except for one who's full-time, they're contractors. Catherine's a part-time employee. So she's not the W-2 one. She's an actual, I pay the tax through the business essentially for her.
Got it. It was that process. That process is somewhat arduous if you're doing it by yourself here. What is that process for you to get all of that set up, get her there? And did you just Google it? How did you learn how to go through that?
Yeah, it wasn't too difficult. Our government has a really good kind of business portal that has step-by-step for all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I just followed through that stuff, checked with my accountant as well that does our tax returns and that sort of thing. Just ran it by him that everything was all good. So yeah, there's a really good resource from our government on all that kind of stuff.
And she's virtual, correct?
She works mostly at home, but she's pretty local to our stadium, so she comes in every now and then and we go through some things in person. Her son's actually training with us now, so I see her when he has his session as well. But yeah, she's local, but mostly works at home because there's no need to come into an office to do the stuff you could be doing at home. And I think she appreciates a lot of the majority of people that applied for the position. That was one of the things that they liked the idea of, is the flexibility with hours, because it doesn't really matter when she replies to customers' emails, obviously within a timely period, not slowly, but it doesn't matter if it's at 6 o'clock at night or at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So the hours are flexible and she can work from home. I think that's really attractive for a lot of people, that kind of position.
And what did the training look like from you to her to get her onboarded and accustomed to the systems and the way you would like to answer emails? And what does it look like now?
Yeah. I'd only just kind of started trying to put everything into systems, a couple of months before I had hired her. I did try a virtual assistant for a little while. It didn't work out. She was overseas, and just the English barrier ended up causing too many issues. For customer service, definitely, I think someone that's native or fluent in English is really important. So the systems were pretty loose and not very detailed. So the training between me and Catherine was really working together, and essentially me going about the things I'd normally do with her, watching and just talking through it together, and just gradually, bit by bit, handing over those responsibilities to her. Then she'd be doing them and asking me questions, and then she'd be doing them and asking me less questions. And now she handles 95% of it. Just has to obviously check some things to even get us more and more on the same page. But she really knows sort of how I'd respond in certain situations, and can now make most of those decisions herself, and makes the right call vast majority of the time. But we've definitely focused on now trying to put in place more documented systems, so that because we have plans to expand well beyond where we are right now. And getting those in place and getting things a lot more organized in that regard is going to be really important going forward.
And two questions before we wrap up. We're coming to the time frame here. Again, man, thank you for the vulnerability, being open and flexible with the time on the interview. For you, in terms of the finances and the metrics when it comes to advising other basketball trainers, what metrics do you look at that you consider important, and what would you suggest others look at? Yeah,
it's something that in the past I didn't pay anywhere near as much attention to as I should, is looking at the numbers. I think you got to be really, really on them and paying really close attention to what they're telling you. For me, the things that I look at as the most critical things. So if I was, away and on the other side of the world, what would I need to know that everything's running well? One would be how many current members we have, just literally the number of people we've got on our books as our current members. What's our trial session conversion rate? So how many people that do a trial are actually then signing up? Because if that number's going low, then that means the quality of our training is dropping off. How many are doing a new trial and how many are signing up, per week or per month? And then retention, how long are they staying? Those are going to be the main things. Now, obviously, the money side of things, it's going to be your standard things, your revenue, gross profit, net profit, those sort of things. But those member numbers and conversion rate and retention rate, they're kind of ones that tell me if the training's actually going well and people are enjoying it and are wanting to stay for it.
Yeah, I think you just gave gold right there, honestly, man. You actually did give gold. How do you, one question before the last question, how do you follow up with them? So after a free trial, prospect comes in, they train, they enjoy the session. Do you guys have like a closing room, or what does that process look like? Catherine calls them on the phone that same night, next day. What does that look like?
It's all by email, to be honest, because we see them in person for the trial, so we kind of already had that bit of a connection. It'll be by email or call. So Catherine will send an email, or after the trial, send an email. And I mean, majority of the time they just reply back to that and say, sure, let's sign up, and then you're done. If they're unsure, that's when maybe we might end up with a call. If we're sort of sitting on the fence, they've got questions, and they're kind of 50-50 about it, and they just want to find out a little bit more, that's when we usually get a call going. But it's just an email. We previously had it automated, so they'd send an automatic email. We've changed systems and we're in the middle of just getting that all set up, so it's kind of manual at the moment. But if you can automate things, you definitely want to get them automated. And there's so many things that can be automated now that you don't need to be doing manually. So definitely worth trying to get things automatic. So I mean, in the past, it's not right now, but previously, as soon as they did their free trial, they got a text right away saying, hope so-and-so with their name enjoyed their free trial session, how did it go? They get an email right away saying essentially the same thing, information on memberships. If they don't sign up, sends them another email. If they don't sign up, sends them a different email. One might be here's our packages. The next one was a testimonial from a player that trained with us and got really good results. So that sort of thing is kind of the process.
I like that, the email sequence, the dripping out different emails after the visit, the training session. So last question for you. You're almost approaching this decade mark where you've been in business for 10 years, whether part-time or full-time. What's your decade of wisdom to a basketball trainer who may be starting out and looks at where you are and is like, that's what I want mine to look like, or that's where I want to be? what's the wisdom you would give them?
Yeah, dream big would be it. I remember when Gannon Baker came back to Australia. Might have been, it's probably around that 2014 mark, so a couple of years after I'd done the first session with him, and I had that kind of 40 players training with me at the time. Or actually, it might be a little bit less. I might have like 30 or something. And I'd said to him, he said, "What's your goal?" And I said, "I want to coach 50 players a week." And he said, "Why not 150? Why not 150?" And to me at the time, that sounded just ridiculous. It sounded ludicrous. I sort of laughed and said, "Yeah, sure." Like as if 150 players a week. Whereas now we're at 200 and we've got 280 spots a week. So that conversation sticks in my mind because it's just, it opened up my mind now to a new, well, if I could get from here to there and I couldn't even see that as being possible, I wonder what's possible now long term and dreaming big. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone wants to own a company my size. And we have plans to get a lot bigger than we are right now and do a lot even better things than we are right now. But that's because that's what I enjoy. If you're someone that just enjoys coaching, then maybe the ideal business for you is to have 80 players a week and you're purely just coaching. You don't have to do much admin. You've got an admin person doing that, and that might be your dream. So dream big, exactly what you want, and figure out what it is you want. Figure out what the end goal is that you're trying to get to. A really good book that spoke to me massively is Start With Why by Simon Sinek. And that's kind of about figuring out that why you're doing things, and figuring out that early, so then you can base your decisions on that and kind of work towards your end goal. So dream big and know where you're going. Figure out what it is you're actually trying to work towards will be the main tips.
Pete, thank you for your generosity and your time, man. Really appreciate it.
More than welcome, Master. Thanks for having me, mate.